I parked across from my father's house and let the engine tick down. The porch light was on at noon because he believed in preparedness more than mercy. The hedges still saluted. I had come to return a sentence. Now you know how your mother felt. The last time I came, I carried overdraft notices and a brave face. Daniel had turned our savings into temporary fixes, which is what you call holes when you're the one with the shovel. At the grocery store, I called my father and asked if I could stay for a little while. He said, "Come by. We'll talk, like a locksmith." He opened the door with company manners and counted my bags like sins. His smile was small and practiced. "Well," he said, "choices have consequences." Then the line that cracked me open. "Now you know how your mother felt." I slept 2 nights under wallpaper flowers that looked away, and on the 3rd morning my suitcase waited on the porch like a verdict. "You're stronger than she was," he said, and shut the door as if I were weather. Even now, 5 years after her funeral, my mother's crying lives in that house. When I was a girl, she wept in the bathroom with the shower running. "The pipes are singing," she'd say, and I braided my doll's hair on the hall rug, practicing patience as a way to be loved. My father turned up the television. His silence was a tool. In town, he was the man people trusted with casseroles and eulogies. At home, he measured affection in teaspoons. He believed love should build character, which is how withholding dresses is principle. I learned to earn my place by needing less. I became excellent at disappearing. I married the echo. Daniel was polite in public, guiding me by the elbow. At home, he collected my yesies as if they were coins. When money disappeared, he said we were a team. When I asked about the emergency fund, he said I worried like my mother. Love became a ledger, and my tenderness kept getting audited. The day I begged my father, the word daddy slipped out like an old key. "Just for a few weeks," I said, "until I figure things out." He studied me the way men read weather reports, curious about the storm, confident they'll stay dry. The smile came, efficient, tidy. "Now you know how your mother felt." Pain, to him, was a lesson women failed. I went back to my husband because a porch that pushed me away felt colder than a home that pretended to warm me. I told myself endurance was devotion in work clothes. I trimmed myself to fit. When he asked for my card pins for emergencies, I gave them to prove I was trustworthy. By nightfall, the account was bare, and the emergency was me. Today, in the idling car, I counted the ways I had been trained to starve. There is a pride that grows in hungry girls. We call crumbs gratitude and wear scarcity like a medal. We marry men who feed us last and then praise our patience. We applaud ourselves for needing almost nothing, as if that were holiness instead of harm. I closed my eyes and saw the bathroom tile, little blue squares that taught me how to stare until feeling went quiet. My mother's slippers kept vigil by the tub. When I tapped the door, she whispered, "The pipes are singing." My father walked past and flicked the hall light off because daylight was enough. Enough became our religion. It made wanting look like sin. A couple walked by holding hands. The porch looked smaller now, like a stage for a play I no longer wanted. I could knock, ask for nothing, receive nothing, and rehearse the old choreography of shrinking. Or I could let the house keep its favorite audience, itself. My phone buzzed with a photo Daniel had sent. Our wedding day. Rice in my hair like small white lies. "Remember always?" he wrote. "Tell your dad I said hi." I stared until the pixels blurred and put the phone face down. Old muscle wanted to answer with compromise. New muscle wanted air. What did my father love more than us? Control, efficiency, the performance of goodness. He solved problems by refusing to feel them and called other people dramatic. He praised me for being practical when I agreed, stubborn when I didn't. I opened the door and stepped into noon. The hedge smelled like clip discipline. The walkway remembered my feet. A neighbor watering petunias nodded. I wasn't here to make anyone comfortable. I was here to see. There it was, a man performing righteousness. A woman engineering her invisibility. A daughter mistaking endurance for lineage. I had copied their math and wondered why my life kept solving to 0. I shut the car door, circled to the trunk, and looked at my suitcase, ready to be judged again. I closed the trunk and chose not to carry it to a door that would enjoy closing. Back in the driver's seat, my reflection in the rearview looked like my mother when she thought nobody was watching. Tired? Yes, but lit from somewhere real. There are rooms you cannot live in, I heard her say. Even if your name is on the deed. I turned the key. The engine caught. The house began to shrink. I didn't cry. Ahead, the road curved where the map promised. I followed, surprised by how simple leaving can be when you stop negotiating with a locked door. In the mirror, the porch light still burned at noon. Some men would rather waste electricity than admit a mistake. Some daughters would rather go hungry than be called dramatic. I was learning another way. I let that lesson settle slowly, deep in my bones today. That day, I stopped being his daughter and became my mother's ghost. The apartment smelled like fresh paint and boiled rice. I kept the mattress on the floor because a bed frame felt like a promise. In the morning, I booked therapy like an oil change. Necessary, inconvenient for people who claim they're fine. The office was beige and quiet. "What did love feel like in your home?" my therapist asked. Words tried to form, orderly, efficient, earned. I tasted them and felt nothing. "Predictable," I said at last. She wrote one line, conserving ink the way my father conserved tenderness. We made a map out of questions. When did praise become suspicious? Where did I learn to apologize for existing? I told her about the bathroom where the pipes sang, my mother crying in steam, my father turning up the television. I told her about the porch light that burned at noon, because mercy in our house was for show. When you needed comfort, who came? The answer was a picture. My knees on the hallway rug, a doll's hair in my fingers, my father's shoes passing by. After sessions, I bought soap that smelled like oranges and a chipped cup I decided was charming. Evenings, I practiced not calling Daniel. Freedom echoed. My fingers reached for his number like a tongue finds a missing tooth. On Saturday, I opened the last bin of my mother's things and found a sewing box, its hinge taped like a bandage. Inside were zippers, buttons, and beneath them a ribbon around a stack of envelopes. The letters were addressed to nobody. Some began "Dear" and stopped. My mother's handwriting was careful and upright. I sat on the floor and read them aloud. She wrote about leaving and the terror of appearing foolish. She wrote, "I have a suitcase that knows more about me than my husband does." She wrote, "Every time I plan, he calls me dramatic and I become smaller." The last page ended mid-sentence. "I will try to..." A dash like a bridge she never crossed. Heat rose through me. Not grief exactly, but inheritance catching fire. I brought the letters to therapy. "What do you hear her asking?" my therapist said. I stared at the dash. "Finish me," I whispered. "What's the first word?" For once I didn't say sorry. No. Flashbacks clicked open. My father rinsing a glass while my mother cried. Water running, him humming, door closed. Me at 15 with a scholarship letter. His mouth a flat line asking if the school was practical. Me at 22 saying I wanted to write. His chuckle naming my life a hobby. He rewarded quiet and rebranded wanting as trouble. Discipline was his costume. Fear of independent women was the body underneath. Daniel called the night I sorted the letters. He was reconsidering everything. He had a plan. He missed us. Couldn't we meet? My thumb hovered over yes. Instead, I left a message for my therapist. I'm afraid that saying no makes me cruel. In the morning, she called back. Who taught you that? She asked. I saw a porch light at noon. I saw a dash that had waited years. We met in a coffee shop that closed at 9. You look stronger, he said, reaching. I kept my hands around my cup. He unfolded his plan. He would manage money carefully. I could rest. He would communicate. When I asked about the drained accounts, he called it panic. When I said lie, he said white. I set a photocopy of one letter on the table. Read, he obeyed, mouth moving grudgingly. What is this? My mother, I said. My future if I come home? He laughed. You're being dramatic. The floor tilted toward him, a familiar slide. Then her sentence stood up inside me. He will take your softness and call it weakness. No, I said. The cup clicked against its saucer. He blinked. What? No. He leaned in. Be reasonable. I thought of all the times reasonable meant less of me. I said no again, and the second one locked like a door I owned. He gathered his jacket. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said. Outside, the evening was bruised blue. I walked home with the letters in my bag like stones. In the apartment, I taped the last page, the one with the dash, inside the closet. I ordered a bed frame. I bought a lamp that clicked on without prayer. Choices, declarative as periods. In therapy, I said it plain. My father's smile was fear in a tie. Fear of what? Of women refusing the script. The room felt bigger. Days grew edges. I said no to a shift I couldn't cover. No to a cousin who wanted me to call Dad more. No to the voice that asked me to audition for Worth. I said yes to oranges and friends and a Sunday morning where I didn't apologize for breathing. I ironed the ribbon from the letters and used it as a bookmark. When I think of my father now, I see the boy inside the man, terrified of a woman who would not orbit him. He fashioned a religion from scarcity and called it virtue. I was raised to tithe my softness to it. Not anymore. The mirror is cracked, and through the fracture I can finally see a face that looks like mine. He texted once more. Door is open. I turned on my lamp and read the copied line from my mother. He will take your softness and call it weakness. I slid the phone under the book and breathed. The apartment smelled of oranges and starch and something new I couldn't name yet. I don't forgive him. I don't hate him either. I'm busy. I am finishing a sentence my mother couldn't. Standing in my room, with my bed on legs and my voice on its feet, I practiced the ending until it felt like a beginning. He made me a lesson, but I chose to be the ending. It was early spring when my sister called. Her voice was brisk, businesslike, the tone we use when pretending we're fine. Dad's not doing well, she said. You should come. I didn't ask what not doing well meant. In our family, sickness is easier to name than emotion. I almost said no. But something inside me, not duty, not guilt, curiosity maybe, said go. I packed nothing but my keys and a letter from my mother, the one that ended mid-sentence. It felt like a compass. The drive was quiet. The same roads, same houses, all unchanged, as if time itself had decided to protect his myth. I parked in the same spot as before, where the hedges still saluted the illusion of order. The porch light was on, even in daylight. That part never changed. When he opened the door, I barely recognized him. The man who once stood like a sermon now leaned on the frame, pale and shrunken. His breath came in short, uneven bursts. You came, he said, as if surprised. I nodded. Just to visit. The house smelled of dust and disinfectant. A television murmured somewhere in the background, another substitute for conversation, My siblings had left casseroles and instructions, but not their presence. Of course they wanted me to step into the familiar role, the caretaker, the daughter who cleaned up pain without complaint. He motioned for me to sit. I stayed standing. "I didn't expect you," he said again, his voice small. "I know." We sat in silence, the kind that used to terrify me. Once, I would have filled it with apologies, with explanations, with softening laughter to make him comfortable. Now I let the silence do its work. He studied me like a riddle he no longer knew how to solve. "You've changed," he said finally. I had to. He shifted, uncomfortable. "Your sister said you're seeing someone new?" "I'm seeing myself," I said. He gave a weak laugh that turned into a cough. "Still dramatic," he muttered, but the words lacked venom. My eyes drifted to the photo wall, the curated museum of his legacy. Him with parish members, him at town events, him with awards, none of my mother, except the wedding photo, where she smiled like a woman rehearsing joy. I walked closer, touching the frame. "You never took this one down," he shrugged. "She was a good woman. Too sensitive." "She wasn't sensitive," I said softly. "She was lonely." He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across his face. A man confronting a truth he'd buried so deep he mistook it for peace. "I gave her a home," he said. "No, you gave her walls." His hands trembled on the armrest. "You don't understand." "She loved you," I interrupted. "I know." "So did I. We both paid for it." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, filled with ghosts. I thought about the years we'd both spent orbiting his approval like it was sunlight. But now I saw it for what it was, a distant, controlled burn. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly. The words were uneven, as if unused to daylight. "For the things I said. I wanted to feel something. Relief. Anger. Anything. But all I felt was the quiet understanding that he wasn't apologizing. For me, he was apologizing to the image of himself he couldn't carry to the grave. "It's okay," I said. "You don't have to make it right," he frowned. "So that's it? You won't even—" "I came," I said gently. "That's more grace than you ever gave her." His eyes darted away. "You're just like your mother," and this time I smiled. "Thank you. It wasn't defiance. It was freedom." I left before nightfall, before duty could disguise itself as love again. Outside, the air was cool and damp with the scent of rain. I stood on the porch one last time, remembering the girl who once begged at this same door, and the woman who now walked away from it unbowed. Back in the car, I looked at the house. Small, stubborn, sacred only to its builder. The porch light still glowed against daylight, clinging to habit. But it no longer had power over me. When I reached my apartment, sunlight spilled across the floor like welcome arms. The plants I'd kept alive stood tall in their pots, proof that nurturing didn't have to mean self-erasure. I opened the window and let the breeze move through. It carried warmth and maybe something like forgiveness. I took my mother's letters from the drawer. One by one, I fed them to the flame of a small candle. The paper curled and blackened, releasing whispers of words she was too afraid to speak. When I reached the unfinished one, "I will try to—" I stopped. That one I kept. I folded it carefully and tucked it into a book, between pages about beginnings. Forgiveness, I realized, isn't a door you walk back through. It's the road you take in the other direction, slow, steady, and your own. I brewed tea and stood by the open window, the wind playing with my hair. Somewhere outside, children laughed, a sound my childhood never knew. I smiled for them, for her, for me. My father will likely tell himself that I came home out of love. Let him. Truth doesn't need witnesses. Some stories don't need to be corrected. They just need to end. In that quiet room, I whispered to the woman who lived in the bathroom mirror all those years ago. "You're free now." The breeze lifted the last curl of smoke from the candle and carried it away. He made me remember her pain. I made sure it ended with me. Generational wounds don't heal by repeating silence. They heal when one woman decides to stop, begging for love that should have been freely given. What would you do if your own parent used your pain to teach you a lesson? Would you forgive or walk away? Subscribe for more powerful stories of survival, healing, and generational justice. Because sometimes the quietest revenge is freedom.